Welcome to Bereans at the Gate. This is our video blog for October 1st, 2018. Still on our new sparkly set. So again, thanks to everyone at Cedarville University for giving us access to this. Guys, I don't know what we're going to talk about this week. There's so little going on, so little polarization, so little division in our country. We could just hold hands and sing songs to reflect the general climate. Would that be appropriate?
Sure.
All right. Let's talk Brett Kavanaugh instead. So Kavanaugh, obviously a lot happened during the interim since our last vlog. Mark, you watched the statements. You watched all of it.
Yeah.
Just general impressions that you had consuming it and what you thought about it.
Yeah. Well, two things that really stood out. Kavanaugh's statement was very impassioned. At the same time, Ford's statement was emphatic but not impassioned. She was almost timid at times in her statement, but she was firm in what she affirmed. The other thing I noted really clearly was there's still no evidence that's substantial at all. All the people that were mentioned, all of the statements that were made, all of the documents that were brought forward, including his calendars, didn't seem to prove anything against him at all at this point. So there's nothing but statements that have been refuted, or there are no statements at all.
Well, there's her testimony's evidence. It's
right,
just not corroborated.
That's all we have. Nothing corroborated at all. And nobody else has come forward that really has any evidence at all so far.
What do you guys think about the fact that he was so impassioned in his statement? He's gotten a lot of criticism about it. Maybe this reveals the lack of a judicial temperament, is something that we've heard. Maybe this reveals he wouldn't be fair in how he handles issues where Democrats might be involved. Maybe he has an axe to grind all of a sudden. What do you guys think about those kinds of concerns with the judge moving forward? Bert?
Well, I don't think it's a concern at all. I mean, he's being personally accused. It's a very different situation than if he was sitting in judgment over another person. So I don't really think there's any issue. I also suspect that this was strategic. You know, this wasn't him just flying. Yeah. Oh yeah, this wasn't just him flying off the handle.
Yeah, right.
You know, the Republicans had a specific way that the Professor Ford was questioned by that other lawyer, and it did not work at all. It just simply, you know, the lawyer never could follow through. She kept being interrupted, and so what he did is he did what he thought he needed to do, and I thought what he said was appropriate. I didn't disagree with the notion that what the Democrats are doing is, you know, just well, it's political, purely political.
Yeah, Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, it's obviously to call the situation that we saw in this courtroom setting, almost even though it wasn't a courtroom setting, as hypocritical is really what you would expect from this kind of scenario. So we have Justice Ginsburg, who said that she would time to move to another country when Mr. Trump was elected, but that's not political. And we're told that when we have somebody being accused of a rapist, he should sit there and be passive about it. So it seems to me like the double standard is, and lots of commentators, so this isn't unique with us to talk about this.
Right.
If he stands on there very impassioned, well, see, he doesn't even care about this. He's just he's
cold and calculating.
No matter what he did, he was going to be judged for that.
Yeah.
So the criticisms are not to be unexpected. Kind of the interesting thing is I saw that the Democrats are trying to pressure the ABA to because of that tenor that he used, to reopen their recommendation of him based on that. I don't know.
It shouldn't get anywhere.
I'm not sure it goes anywhere. Surely the ABA is not going to step into this anymore. But I was trying to put myself in his shoes a little bit. And if I'd been falsely accused and felt like that committee had really run roughshod over me and my family, and I think his tone was appropriate for that, frankly. Doesn't prove his innocence.
No.
But I think the demeanor is fair given his circumstances. I think and you know, I saw his statement after it happened. I was traveling, I got back, I watched it, and I was expecting him to be almost frothing at the mouth and just sort of coming unglued. But when I watched it, he was passionate.
Yes.
And he was, I think, appropriately passionate. I never got the sense that he was really angry in the sense he was losing control of anything, but he was pointed in his criticisms, and I think it was proper in some ways. And so I thought it was perfectly reasonable given what he'd gone through myself.
He's a little combative with Klobuchar, which I thought it was almost humorous in a certain sense. But then the other senator, and I forgot who it was, White House maybe, who was questioning him incessantly on words that he put in a yearbook.
In his yearbook, yeah.
And I thought, this is completely crazy.
Yeah.
Right? So,
well, some of our commenters on our blog think that's a critical factor because that just shows he's dishonest, and how can you trust him?
those words were used in a common way they were used then. He defined them in the way they were used then.
Who knows? That seemed to me to be a stretch. But some people, you know, and like most of these cases, we've suspected people's concerns are related to their prior biases. So if you were against Mr. Kavanaugh to begin with, those yearbook statements look very, very terrible.
That's right.
If you thought he was okay,
it's all code.
Why? It's just in his yearbook. Who cares? I mean, that's I think is all that's going on.
Let's talk for just a minute about Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham.
That was interesting.
For those of you that don't pay attention to national politics that often, Lindsey Graham was a pretty staunch critic of President Trump throughout the nomination process. Graham, of course, ran himself unsuccessfully. He was always relegated to those sort of lower tier debates and things like that. And he was grumbling about it. He was critical of Trump, really, even during most of Trump's first year. But he came out very strongly, obviously, in defense of Kavanaugh, and I think won himself a lot of supporters. What's disappointing to me about it is they've said, well, you're just sort of cozying up to Trump, and this is all about you winning supporters in South Carolina. But doesn't this reveal him to be a man of principle? I mean, he's criticizing Trump when he thinks that it's reasonable to do that. Here, he's staunchly defending Trump's nominee. I think Graham is what Graham is. He's kind of his own man. So I read things like, well, he discovered his backbone today and this kind of nonsense. I thought it was pretty impressive. Now, even whether you agree with him or disagree with him, I think he's a man that's motivated by his beliefs.
Yeah, I think that when Graham was running for president and criticizing Trump, he came off whiny even though he wasn't insincere, kind of whiny. This case, he came off being very impassioned and very aggressive for Kavanaugh. And that did make him look a lot stronger than he looked before. I don't think he's changed his sincerity. I think what's happened, he's changed his tone. That makes a difference.
A little bit.
I think it's really important that what he said, because I think it's a harbinger of really where the direction is changing, and potentially in even in this midterms elections, because you're right, he would normally be called a rhino Republican in name only by many. To say that he's now unbelievable, but to say that he's a Trump camp guy now, that's not true for sure. But here's what it does suggest to me, and I loved your comment on that. I think that this is going to be a galvanizing effect for the Republican base. I think what he said really resonated with those conservatives that feel like that the Democrats really are dirty. And I want to take it a step further and get y'all's comment on that, because you're the political scientist here. It seems to me that when you look at the election of this year, off-year elections are always on turnout, and I think that what the Democrats did through this process, if the Republicans are successful at getting Mr. Kavanaugh on the court, I think that that's going to energize the base, because they have been reminded of what the Democrats' agenda is, and they'll be fired up. So when you hear Lindsey Graham say, I'm not going to forget what you've done, I think he's going to be representing a lot of Americans that are on the conservative side. I'm not going to forget this, and I'm going to show up at the polls. And even though conventional wisdom says that this is going to be harmful to the Republicans, I believe it's going to be positive to their base if they get Mr. Kavanaugh confirmed. And what do y'all think?
At least I don't think it'll hurt.
Yeah, Bert, what do you think?
At least.
Well, the news cycle is so fast these days. If we remember and this sticks, if we remember it, and it may not be, and we may not even remember it next week, and we think about this stuff. So if it does stick, I agree with you. I also think that what the Democrats could do that would be more harmful to them is to show their movement in a progressive direction with all their young candidates. So if they come up and really present themselves as being, I won't even say just this side of socialists, but as way left, I think that will energize the Republican base also.
Well, I think part of, I'm sorry, Aaron, but I want to follow up on his point, because I think what we've seen from the Democrats talking about already is they're already gearing up to impeach Mr. Kavanaugh. And before, recall that Nancy Pelosi was trying to tell all the Democrats, stop talking about impeaching Mr. Trump. And now that's front and center. I don't think that she can put that in a box. That's why I think it'll play into what you've said.
I mean, of all the events of this administration so far, which of them has galvanized the Republicans more than this moment? I'm not sure anything has.
Not so far.
Not tax cuts, not deregulation. Nope. This thing, though, where Republicans seem to be on one page, conservatives are on one page with Trumpers, never Trumpers are all in agreement. all that maybe Kavanaugh is being railroaded here, and the Senate Democrats have acted irresponsibly at best, maybe even underhandedly at worst.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it is a galvanizing moment. Will it filter down from the elites into the rank and file? Will it mobilize voters? I don't know. But I think you're right. It gives them more motivation than they had 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Will it make a difference? I don't know.
I won't say this has galvanized me, but of everything that's happened so far, I find this to be the most objectionable.
Why? Why is that?
Because I don't feel like that there's any notion of fairness to this gentleman. There's no evidence. They don't care. All they want is for there not to be the perceived swing towards a conservative court, and they're afraid that it will undo some of the legislation that they love, and they don't care what happens in order to make that come about. And I think they've treated him abysmally. I don't think they treated Ford well at all either. I think they abused her. So for that reason, it's not so much that I will have or will change necessarily my perspective on Trump, but my animus against the Democrats has been kind of poked a little bit through this.
All right, what does this process tell us about our culture? Is this just sort of another element in the culture war? Is this revealing something new? And we have Me Too, we have alcohol, we have college, we have high school, we have elitism. There's a lot boiled into this to some extent. Does this reveal something new to us at this particular moment, do you think? Mark?
Well, that's a really good question. Is this just a microcosm of what we're already seeing in culture? Are we seeing a vulgarity, for lack of a better term, in culture, increasing vulgarity or decadence of a certain sort?
You mean we've never seen a sitting senator question a nominee about whether they were part of a gang rape?
Well,
on television in front of the country to see? I mean, it's...
Or worse, or other things that were asked and said by some of the senators. This is just, it's not been done this way before.
No,
and
it hasn't.
It's public now. It's right out there.
I would hypothesize something else is perhaps going on. We've had a number, as we've watched the culture move away into a post-Christian culture that we're really in now, a lot of people on the Christian right have said, hey, if that's in a way that's okay because cultural Christianity is really bad. The church will be glorified as the true church is starting to be revealed. And I don't disagree with that. Yet what we see is cultural Christianity has receded and Christianity in the public sphere has diminished. I think you're seeing the fruits of cultural Christianity shrinking, and now what we have is a result where there's no common moral values, even if not firmly believe in a salvation kind of result, such that the conflict is going to rise. I think we're seeing the results of what a post-Christian society looks like, and I don't think anybody likes it. I don't think people thought about that before.
Right. Bert, what do you think?
I agree with what Professor Heyman's saying there. I agree with you that we're seeing what our world is going to be more like in the future. And unless we as a people acting as a society find some moral basis, it will only get worse.
But that raises the question, where are we going to find that? How are we going to find that?
We'll see. Got to find it somewhere.
Yep.
So coming up, we have this week the FBI investigating some more. You know, Jeff Flake's compromise was to support Kavanaugh so long as the FBI moves forward an investigation. He's been through 6 background checks already. Given a week, I'm not sure they can do much more than a background check. Maybe they can target some resources on his high school or whatever, but do you expect anything new to be turned up this week, Mark?
Trump just expanded the investigation to allow the FBI to take any statements at all.
Yeah,
which means people could come forward.
Sure.
If the FBI wants to take their statements, they will. That will give the Democrats ammunition to say, wait a minute, there's another allegation, there's another allegation, there's another allegation. Let's delay the confirmation. This kind of thing. I don't know whether they'll try that or not. Depends on how credible any of these are.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for them to be particularly credible.
Right. So far, the other ones have not been credible, at least according to most. Jeff, what do you think?
Well, they've been decreasingly credible. We'll put it that way.
That's right.
I'd say the additional ones.
The additional
ones.
But getting worse in that regard. But I do think that because of the stakes, if I'm correct that if Mr. Kavanaugh is confirmed, that it will help the Republican Party, and there is no doubt that if he is defeated, that helps the Democratic Party. That I think the Democrats are going to be all out this week. I have no idea what they're up to, but I've got to believe something's up.
They'll try.
Bert, anything new this week, do you think?
Not that I can look into my crystal ball and see. I'm not certain. I do not know. I don't think, particularly with the Ford allegation, that there will be anything that will come out of it.
Yeah. It's a little disconcerting to me as a constitutionalist that Congress is giving more and more authority to the executive. They can't even be trusted to investigate someone, I suppose, at any level. They got to turn it over to the FBI.
Yeah.
We've sort of been seeing this trend for a while. So,
Yeah.
all right, so let's go on the record. Bert, do you think Kavanaugh ultimately gets confirmed?
I do.
You do? Mark?
Unless something big happens this week.
Jeff?
I'm with him.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. All right, well, thanks for joining us. Please leave your comments in the post that will accompany this video blog, and we will see you next week.